Welcome to Sunbury, settled in 1836 by George Evans and William Jackson. They held some holdings of farms in the area. Sunbury was named after?
Sunbury was named after a town in the UK. It sounds very English, doesn't it? So I also believe it was located on the Thames. So that sounds very English. Now, Sunbury is located about 40 kilometres from Melbourne. I have a sign to my right here that actually says Melbourne is about 30 minutes, but they don't say how do you get there in 30 minutes. We're also 1 hour from Castlemaine, and Castlemaine holds very special interest for us because we came from Castlemaine this morning.
So we're here to check out the architecture also of Sunbury. But George Evans's holding was called Emu Bottom.
Why would that have been the case, Jojo?
Because in the land there was a valley and many emus were there. Not that bums had anything to do with it, but hence the area was named Emu Bottom.
Better than a baboon's bottom.
Oh yeah, of course. So we're going to walk around Sunbury and we're going to check out some of the architecture today. And then we'll finish up today at the Sunbury Asylum. And unfortunately we can't get into the asylum today because
very unfortunate, Jojo.
Everything's locked up and there's a fence around it, but we'll be able to give you a glimpse and a little bit of the history of the area.
But if it was open, they would be zapping him up.
Speak for yourself, Peter. If it was open and we were locked in there, we'd be both in there forever. Come along with us. We are at the Aiken Gap Jail, which was built in 1852. But it was built in an area
where they didn't get enough crims, so they had to relocate it in order to get more criminals. No, they didn't.
This is not the original location. It was actually built on the outside skirts of the town. And it also housed much bigger barracks in the area. And
because the demand was not that great at that time, it fell into disrepair. So in 1989, they relocated it here. And ironically, it is next to the police station.
And the courthouse, which is no longer
a courthouse. It's just really a community centre.
Let's move on.
Bye.
Behind me, you can see a little cottage which was built before 1870. This is one of Sunbury's earliest little cottages that were built here. It ran as a saloon by Mary Ann Williams. You can imagine what a partying atmosphere it would have been back in those days. Boozy bunch they would have been. We've just finished lunch at the
8 Oaks
Cafe
in Sunbury.
And we've just enjoyed a
Reuben.
And what's a Reuben filled with, Peter?
Well, Jojo, I do enjoy my Reubens, and they have corned beef, and it's like sauerkraut, I suppose, and some drizzled cheese through it, so on a toasty sandwich. So it was yummy.
With a pickle on the top.
Correct.
Anyway,
rate's pretty high. I've had better, but I'd come back here again, definitely.
Okay, now that we've got our tummies filled, we'll continue with the walk.
Look at Ruby. She's just resting her head on Joe's shoulder. She's a lazy one.
standing in front of the Soldiers Memorial Hall. This building was refurbished and virtually rebuilt in 1922. But what you can't tell or see is the fact that it was actually originally built in 1885. It actually was the Mechanics Institute. So completely remodeled, it serves a new purpose today.
This is a memorial to Joseph Starkey. Now, Joseph did a lot of good works around town. He was local councillor, Justice of the Peace, and he was also chair of the Water Board. Now, when I look at this memorial, it has a little fountain, but guess what? No tapware. You'd think of being chair of the Water Board would actually allow you to have a tap at the end of your fountain, so to speak.
Somehow it got lost.
A tap at the end of your fountain. Think about that one.
Rupertswood, the magnificent mansion, was built in 1874 to 1876. It was the home of Sir William Clarke and family, one of the most successful pastoralists and farmers in the 19th century Australia. It was a venue for high society parties and overseas guests, having a botanical garden, Venetian lake, underground fernery, racetrack and private railway siding. It is also the birthplace of the Ashes of Cricket fame. Today the estate is home to Salesian College. The mansion has been restored to its original splendour and now operates as part of the college.
I'm standing at the Sunbury railway station. Now, the original station was commissioned in 1859. These days, you can use your myki at the Sunbury railway station. Now, behind me, we have some remnant from the past. It's actually a water storage unit. It's now preserved by the National Trust. Now, why might we have a water storage unit here? Well, back in the days when the track wasn't electrified, we had steam engines. And of course, we needed water in order to generate the steam.
I find myself at the outskirts of Sunbury at Emu Bottom Homestead. It is the oldest homestead farm in Victoria. It was built in 1836. The name Emu Bottom came about the fact that there were many emus in the district. The main homestead and some of its outlying buildings were constructed from local stone, dry coursed with creek mud. Emu Bottom is also a rare example of early Australian colonial architecture, with its 12-paned, deeply recessed windows recalling the old world, while the homestead was also intelligently adapted to the new environment, with its wide verandas and easterly aspect. We're standing just in front of the old asylum. It's quite a big complex, but it commenced its life in 1864 as an institution for children, really as an industrial school for children that were poor and deprived of education, and so that they could teach these kids trade so they could go out into the world and have some sort of skills.
But it didn't seem like it was such a great life here at that time, even for the young kids, because there was a 10% mortality rate. So here we are trying to train and educate somebody, and then 10% of them are dying.
In 1879, it became what we remember as the institution of an asylum.
Henry Baxter. Now, we talked a little bit about Henry in earlier days because Henry was pretty infamous for his architectural styles in relation to schools and public institutions. And we were in front of the North Melbourne High School, I believe, and there is a monument to Henry located there. But anyway, he's had his influence even here at Sunbury. Jojo, I'm also going to mention and reflect on the word asylum, because as much as we might have negative connotations of the word asylum, we associate it with lunatics, for example. In many respects, the word asylum means place of refuge. So here we are, a place of refuge from maybe the insane world on the outside, hey?
Unfortunately, the asylum closed in 1992.
Correct, and that was at a time when they were deinstitutionalising a lot of these institutions holding long-term residents.
The school underwent the redevelopment of the Sunbury Asylum in 1891 to 1914.
This place has great bones. Now, as much as it has been decommissioned now, I'd love to wait to see what it becomes, because great opportunity abounds.
The Little emphasised more of a detention than a hospital for mental health. Some of the names of many asylums changed in 1905 to hospitals for the insane, and in 1933 to mental hospitals. Sunbury Asylum throughout its life has been exclusively used for long-term patients. In 1962 it proclaims as a mental health and training centre. The asylum closed in 1992. Well, we've come to the end of our walk around Sunbury. We've seen some quite interesting buildings during the day. We've had a nice little lunch, and now it's time for us to say goodbye. But before we go, I'll leave you with this. If you happen to come to Sunbury and you'd like to do the walk, pick up a couple of brochures from the Sunbury Tourist Information Centre and take a walk around Sunbury and discover a little bit of history. And that's about all from us today.
So if you haven't enjoyed yourself, you've just wasted the last 10 minutes of your life.
And if you have, please subscribe and support the channel so that we can bring you more episodes and more walks around Victoria and some more of our travels around the world.
Keep on following us. Bye.
See you on the next one.